How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me is Leonard. This is a show about wrestling, and we are departing from our Royal Rumble string of shows and getting back to a normal routine, as it were. And we have done something here called Unstable Stables in the past, and we are going to do that again this week. This time, we are going to be tackling the ECW Originals and just some background on the Unstable Stables. We will put the rules up here for you to see, but basically we take a list of said wrestling talent and or managers or valets, and we draft them. Leonard and I draft them. I will be getting the first pick this week, but Leonard will get the first placement of a match later on. But basically we draft however many participants of said stable we see fit, or however many were in that stable total, and we draft them into teams, and then Leonard and I each have a team, and we then put those teams into a short match card, and Leonard and I debate who would win those matches until we have a winner and the ultimate version of said stable. So as I said, we are going to be tackling ECW this week. It was a suggestion from Leonard. So Leonard, why don't you take us away and talk a little bit about the ECW Originals?
Yeah, so it should be noted the ECW Originals are not necessarily everyone who was connected with the original ECW. Just a brief overview: when the WWE created their version of ECW in 2006, that they had a mix of new talent and old ECW guys. And in early 2007, there began to be kind of a division, more of a division between those, with the younger guys being dubbed the new breed, and the original ECW guys being dubbed the ECW Originals. So that faction feuded with the new breed in the ECW brand of WWE for quite a while. Again, I won't go over the whole history of that, but they eventually wound up splitting in May of 2007 at One Night Stand, as some different members kind of went against each other and went different ways, etc. But the stable reformed in TNA in 2010 as EV 2.0, featured some of the same guys and some new people as well. And then that eventually broke up because of a traitor in their midst. And it briefly reformed again in 2015 in WWE, when the Dudley Boyz were feuding with the Wyatt family and wound up using Tommy Dreamer and Rhino as backup for that. So according to Wikipedia, and that was just the thing in a nutshell. I'm not getting deep into it. But in a nutshell, the ECW Originals, over the three different versions, what was in WWE, what was in TNA, and what appeared at One Night Stand, had 20 different individual members. So we're going to be drafting all 20 of those guys over the course of 10 rounds, one at a time. One of those guys will be a manager in the card that we are going to be putting together. And we will pick that person at the time of the card. We don't have to designate as we are drafting them. So the pool of talent that we will be picking from are Bill Alfonso, Balls Mahoney, Simon Diamond, Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon Dudley, Mick Foley, Little Guido, Brian Kendrick, Jerry Lynn, Tony Mamaluke, Raven, Rhino, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Sandman, Tracy Smothers, Al Snow, Stevie Richards, Tazz, and Tommy Dreamer. And so, again, that's not everyone you would assume would be affiliated with ECW. Paul Heyman's not on there. Shane Douglas isn't on there. A lot of those names. But these are the guys who were in what was called the ECW Originals and those three different versions. But even with that, usually we draft these guys as they appeared in the stable. But considering that these guys are known and were put together because of their work in the original ECW, we decided that we are going to consider them as they were in their ECW primes. So we are drafting the guys as they were, say, in the mid to late 90s, not from 10 to 12 years later. And of course, that will make a huge difference, I think, on where some of these guys go. There are at least two guys that I know will probably go a lot higher when you consider that version than the later versions. Right. So I think that is the general layout that we usually do. And again, I will go over the match card when we get that far. But Chad, you do have the first pick. So who would you like to go with?
All right. So the first pick for my team is Mick Foley.
You know, there on a lot of these that we've done, there's usually one or two guys that I think could be an overall number one. Here, I think there were several. There were, I think, at least four guys that I think you could have said, and I would have said, fine, okay, go with that. My gut was that you were going to go with Foley. So I'm going to go with Rob Van Dam.
Right. And I figured these would be the top two picks. I mean, obviously I knew what I was going to pick, but I figured you would pick RVD.
Yeah.
So here's where it will probably start to get a little interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going with my number two pick, Tazz.
You know what? Tazz would have been my number two. You know, again, we're considering, and Tazz and Foley would have been, if we're talking late aughts, those guys don't go that high. But if you're talking mid 90s, yeah, those guys certainly go that high. So I'm going to go with a dude that I think most people really connect to ECW, and I think he really came into his own in ECW, and that would be Raven.
All right. Well, I am going to change it up here and go with Bubba Ray Dudley.
Bubba Ray, I had a little. See, now I could pull a Chad here and take his tag team partner, but I'm not going to do that. I don't think that does any good for either of us. So I'm going to stick with my guns and go with Rhino. Of course, he kind of became a bit of a joke a little bit later on, but his original run DCW is a friggin' beast.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Yeah, he was, I would say he was at his best there. And my next pick is going to be Devon Dudley.
Okay. Just in case I changed my mind, possibly a real sleeper pick, I'm going with Jerry Lynn.
Ooh, see, I would have taken that one too. Have you picked Sabu?
No, he's on the board.
All right, I will have Sabu then.
You know, when I was waffling, Sabu was the guy I was waffling about.
Yeah.
Because Sabu, I think if we were drafting like a straight up Fed, maybe not. But considering this is ECW, where all of Sabu's crazy crap works, then I think he's a fine pick. So I almost went with him. And you know what? I'm going to go with another, I think, real deep sleeper pick, an outside the box pick. I'm going to go with Al Snow.
My next pick is going to be Sandman.
Okay. You know, we are pretty close on who we're taking and where we're taking them from where I had them kind of on my list here. I'm going to go with another just ECW stalwart, the guy who's always carried the flag for them. I'm going to go with Tommy Dreamer.
I figured that he would be the next person to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with somebody, well, who I always liked, despite the recent controversy surrounding him. I'm going to go with Brian Kendrick.
Okay. I was kind of surprised to see Brian Kendrick on the list. I don't really remember him. I meant to look it up and I didn't, what his ECW connection was, but apparently he was a member of the stable in TNA. So that's good enough for this list. Who do I want next? I'm going to go with another guy that I really like, and I think he's kind of maybe another sleeper, and that's Balls Mahoney.
All right. Well, you can have your balls, Leonard.
Yes. I'll take my balls and go home.
That's right. I am going to go with Stevie Richards.
Stevie Richards would have been my pick instead of Balls. I love Stevie.
But you love balls more.
I love balls more, but I love Stevie Richards. Uh, he's just the guy that has done so much over the years. I mean, we talked about him when we did Right to Censor.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's just slipped into so many different roles and characters over the years. Let's see here. We're getting down to the nitty gritty plug for us. I'm going to go with Little Guido / Nunzio.
All right. Well, in that case, I am going to go with Tracy Smothers.
Okay. And so I'll go ahead and take Little Guido's tag team partner, Tony Mamaluke.
Yeah, see, I had thought about taking him, I'll be honest. But you were so nice to me the past couple times we did Unstable Stables. I was like, well, I don't know what he's going to do with the two of them, so I don't want to be that way. And to be honest with you, I was never a big fan of him anyway. So
yeah, well, it gives me at least like an established tag team,
right,
to play with.
I will go with Simon Diamond since I know who Bill Alfonso is. Simon Diamond, I'm not as familiar with. So
yes, Simon Diamond actually had a run not too long ago in TNA. Well, as I say, not too long ago, but in relative speaking, because I was actually watching TNA when he came back and was doing.
So very long ago.
So yeah, so like a couple millennia ago. So I guess I get Bill Alfonso as my last pick.
Congratulations to you.
What?
Congratulations on your last pick.
Yes. So, but there is a manager slot, and I've got RVD, so I think I know how that's going to work. Spoiler alert. So to recap, Chad's roster is Mick Foley, Tazz, Bubba Ray, Devon, Sabu, Brian Kendrick, Stevie Richards, Tracy Smothers, and Simon Diamond. My roster is Rob Van Dam, Raven, Rhino, Jerry Lynn, Al Snow, Tommy Dreamer, Balls Mahoney, Little Guido, Tony Mamaluke, and Bill Alfonso. So now we're going to take all those guys and we're going to place them into a card. It is a 5-match card. One of those guys can be a manager, and you don't have to name your manager till you get to that match. So it is going to be a singles match, a tag team match, a 4-way dance for the ECW Originals TV title. Chad and I will get to each place 2 guys in that match. And we've not done that before, but ECW was known for their 3-ways and their 4-ways. So that's why I wanted to include one. A tag team match for the ECW Originals tag team titles and a singles match for the ECW World title. And everything will be under ECW rules. So meaning pretty much no count, no DQ, weapons aplenty, just whatever you want to do, pretty much. So pretty much no rules is ECW rules, more or less. So I get the first placement of the first guy, and I'm going to go with Balls Mahoney. Again, maybe not a high-profile guy, so saving some of my other picks for later. But again, a guy I really like, a guy I think that embodies the ECW style and the ECW personality and attitude.
All right. Well, in that case, I am going to give you Simon Diamond. I won't argue much here. I do think that Balls Mahoney would get the win.
Yeah, and I think Balls is the kind of guy, because, he had a lot of interaction with the fans. They would chant Balls, and I think that's a good guy to wake up the crowd and get them interested early on. So, so I will take the win for my Balls, which never gets old. There was an indie guy around Ohio named Ernie Balls, and he used to do the Rock's People's Elbow, and he called it the ball drop.
Nice. That's amazing. I like that.
We were a big fan. We were a big fan of Ernie Balls. We enjoyed him. So next up, we have a tag team match, and Chad, you get to place your guys first in the tag team match.
Well, in this particular tag team match, I am going to give you Bubba Ray and Devon.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do a Chad reasoning here. I'm gonna give you. Were they the FBI?
I don't know if they were called that, but you could call them the FBI. I think everybody.
Nunzio Mamaluke. I don't remember what they were called. I don't know if they were part of the FBI at one point or not. But I'm gonna give you Little Guido and Mama Luke.
All right. Well, I think that we can assume that the FBI is going to take the loss here. I do think that this would be an interesting match. I do wonder if this happened. I'll be honest with everybody out there right now. I've seen quite a few ECW matches from various pay-per-views. Was not an avid ECW watcher because it was very difficult to get their events back when they were hot. And since the WWE Network and now Peacock, I just haven't explored their pay-per-views in any chronological fashion. So, I don't know if the FBI faced the Dudley Boyz. I want to say they probably did at some point, but I would wager here that the Dudleys would probably get the win.
Yes, I would definitely say, and I think this would be a good match. I think this is a good big versus little match. Apparently, especially considering how small Guido and Tony are compared to Ray and Devon, who aren't huge, but they're big guys.
Right.
So I think this would be a really good, fun tag team match. Definitely, Devon's getting the tables here. So
absolutely, you got to, and I would think he would set some on fire, something special.
Yeah.
After all, this is an ECW Originals event, so
yes, Originals event. So they want to be big here. So next we've got the 4-way dance, and we're going to go back and forth. So I'll place a guy, Chad will place a guy, I'll place a guy, Chad will place a guy. So I'm going to go with Jerry Lynn because from my memory, he did a lot of these 4-way and 3-way dances when he was in ECW and affiliated with them. So I think he's a perfect guy to use here.
All right, and I'm going to go with Brian Kendrick.
Okay, again, I think that's a good pick. And I'm going to go with another guy called the Sleeper. I'm going to go with Al Snow.
Al Snow. Well, in that case, I have to go with Stevie Richards.
And I will say, I think this is a hell of a 4-way. I think all those 4 guys work really well together, and they all have a pretty good kind of fast-paced style, especially at this point in their careers.
This is really tough. Like, if I'm being honest, here's what I think. I think that Stevie Richards and Al Snow cancel each other out. I really do.
I'll give you that.
I think that they're fairly even in that regard, and I think that those two would battle it out. I think this does come down to Brian Kendrick and Jerry Lynn, and I do think it would be a very even match, Leonard. But why don't you? I don't know. It's a toss-up. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on this?
My main thoughts is if we're calling this ECW Originals, I would side with Jerry Lynn just because, again, as I said, I never even looked up to see if Kendrick did much in ECW. But if he did, it wasn't much because neither one of us are really remembering it. So I think from a Booker standpoint, you would want to give the win to Jerry Lynn because Lynn was there. Lynn was known for doing 4-way and 3-way dances. Great talent. I think he matches up very well with Kendrick. But given that this is ECW style and like ECW heyday, I would go with Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I do think that, in his prime, Jerry Lynn was really, really great. And by all accounts, he's doing good things as an agent. I do think it would be a good fast-paced match. It would be cool to see these guys in their prime face each other. But it was not to be. But here we can debate it. So, yes, Jerry Lynn for the win in the 4-way dance.
All right. And that means Jerry Lynn is the ECW Originals television champion.
That's true. Yeah.
So next is for the ECW Originals tag team titles, and you get to place first this time, your tag team. I'm interested to see who you go with here.
So, yeah, I've been debating on who I would pick here. And based on what I know is coming, I think I know who I have to go with here. So I am going to have the tag team that never was of Sabu and Sandman.
Okay. And I'm going to go with, I'm going to call them R&R. I'm going to go with Raven and Rhino.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I hope we don't have a stalemate here, Leonard. We might have to consult the name generator if we don't agree here. But, when it concerns hardcore wrestling, I can't think of anybody more apropos than Sabu and Sandman. Would they work together as a team? I don't know. I don't know if they really would care very much about working together as a team. I think they would just want to destroy shit and have some beers, and I'm sure barbed wire would be involved somewhere. We're talking about Sabu after all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that Sabu doesn't kill himself with some of his dives. So I have to say that as tough as I think Rhino is the real kicker in your team, I
Mm-hmm.
think Raven is the weak link of these four. I truly do. So I would have to give Sabu and Sandman the win here. But if you disagree, I'm willing to hear you out. And if we have to, we'll use the name generator.
All right. I agree with you that I think Sandman and Sabu might actually work a little bit better as a team than Raven and Rhino, just because I think Sabu and Sandman would be more ambivalent. Look at me trying to use $10 words. Ambivalent towards each other, as opposed to Raven and Rhino, who I think would have those tag partners who that don't get along kind of energy going on. And I think, and again, this is ECW original ECW rules, so it's all four men at the same time. I think you would see like Raven and Sabu and probably Rhino and Sandman pair off, go and do shit all across the arena and just make it something wild. But at the end of the day, when it comes to can you come together to close this off, I think you're going to have Sabu and Sandman more likely to do that, because I think from a Booker standpoint, if you're going more forward with this, I think you have Raven or Rhino take the pin, blame the other, and then you feud Raven and Rhino. That's what I would do here. So I'm going to agree with you and give this win and the ECW original tag team title belts to Sandman and Sabu.
And that would be an exciting tag team. I think we can all agree. So.
Yes. I need to come up with a name for that. I don't know what it would be. Write in the comments your tag name for Sandman and Sabu. It's S&S versus R&R. I just realized that. Sandman, Sabu versus Raven and Rhino. So a change up from how I originally named this card. Chad and I figured that I did my math wrong again. I think this has happened before. So we're going to put in an extra match in between the tag team title match and the singles world title match from what I originally laid out. And it is going to be, and I know this is favoring Chad, well, maybe not. It's going to be for the FTW title, which is the Fuck the World title, which is active again in AEW.
Ricky Starks.
So, but we're going to bring it back here. I get the place first. I'm going with Tommy Dreamer.
All right. Well, this might surprise you, Leonard, but Tazz is not available for this match. So he's giving his FTW championship to Mick Foley to defend. So it will be Mick Foley versus Tommy Dreamer.
Well, you know what? Again, me thinking from a Booker standpoint, I think it would be one of those things where it would be like a surprise. Like it wouldn't be announced beforehand. Yeah. And then Foley would come out with the title belt and people would go batshit. Now, it's important to note that this is Mick Foley from mid to early 90s. This is ECW, Cactus Jack, Cane Dewey, Mick Foley. You know, this is where he really went another level. I mean, this is where he went from being kind of the dude that got his butt kicked and did the crazy stuff in WCW to really a fully formed character, I think. And he did some good stuff in Smoky Mountain too, I should say. And he worked with Balls Mahoney over there, who was Boo Bradley. But anywho, you know, again, I'm making Chad's argument for him. Foley Dreamer, I think, is a good match. I think Dreamer definitely is a guy who embodies what ECW is. He always has. He knows how to wrestle that style. He knows how to tell the type of stories that Paul Heyman liked to tell. It's you know, tough for me to argue against Foley here. It just is. But I like Dreamer. I think this is a good match. I think it would be a really fun, hardcore match. I know Foley and Dreamer have wrestled a lot. I believe it was Dreamer He was against that. Foley in his book talks about it was a fans bring the weapons night. And they were fighting in the crowd, and he reaches behind him and he feels somebody hand him something like heavy. And he brings it forward and he smashes Tommy Dreamer in the head with a 2-man kayak. And then he goes to like security guys and he was like, why are you letting them bring a kayak in here? And they were like, Paul said they can bring whatever they want. So anyway, long history between these guys. Fantastic match. I got to go Mick Foley.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to here. I do think, I would like to watch some of the matches that these guys had, in their prime. But I think you kind of have to go with Mick Foley here. As you said, he was just a different level of hardcore here. And since these are all ECW rules matches, it's kind of tough to vote against Mick Foley here, especially considering Tommy Dreamer's record wasn't necessarily the greatest.
No.
He was kind of the consummate underdog in ECW.
Right. He's the guy
he was good at that, though. So
yeah, he could get his ass kicked every night and you would still buy into him.
Right.
I think he's one of those guys that proved that you didn't have to win every match to be considered a main event talent. At least he was main event in ECW. He had so much going on. So
that means then, Leonard, that Mick Foley, you can't have Mick Foley lose the FTW championship without Tazz being in the match. So he returns the FTW championship to Tazz. So
yes. And it appears that, well, I don't know. You could surprise the hell out of me here with your main event. Because we still both have our manager to use and one guy left for the ECW Originals world title match. You get the place first.
That's right. And I will be going with Tazz, and with him will be Tracy Smothers.
Just because you didn't use Tracy Smothers up to this point.
Right.
And of course, I'll be using RVD, seconded by Bill Alfonso. Bill worked with RVD as a manager. And here's, I think the managers actually play a little bit into this because, again, Alfonso worked with RVD. They had a working relationship. They had good chemistry with each other. Smothers never worked with Tazz. Of course, he did work in a third position spot / manager spot with the FBI. I've met Tracy Smothers. Good dude. God rest his soul. He's passed. But I don't know how, I want to hear the storyline how Tracy Smothers wound up with Tazz to come out with him. How did that work out?
I think, I envision it with this being a Tazz from this era. I think that he ran into Tracy Smothers in the locker room, put him in a Tazz mission, and said, I need some backup to somebody to fend off Bill Alfonso while I'm in this match, and you're going to do it. And I think Tracy Smothers, being who he is not going to argue.
No, I think he would go out there and do his best. I buy that storyline. I totally buy that. I just see that, he just goes in the locker room, Tracy ain't doing anything, and he just grabs him. I love that. So, again, it'd be interesting to see how the managers would play into this. I think they would do something, but I don't think that would necessarily influence the outcome. I think they would get a segment, but I don't think they influence the outcome. So RVD versus Tazz, I would have to look up how many times that happened. I know that's, a match. When we're talking these guys, we're going to get matches that have happened before. It's going to be rare for us to get a never happened combination, I think, with all these guys. Tazz was absolutely great when he was in ECW. Great character, great work, all the suplexes he could do, really wonderful. But Rob Van Dam is a next level talent to me. He could do more in the ring than Tazz. I mean, he could go to the top rope. He could fly high where Tazz necessarily couldn't, but Van Dam could wrestle. Now, he maybe wasn't quite the suplex machine or the move machine that Tazz was, but he was a competent wrestler. He could do the ECW style. He could do a traditional style. He could do a high-flying style. He was incredibly over. And if you want to look at the big picture, RVD had a much longer career. He's still working today at the time of this recording. Where Tazz wound up retiring, fairly early. I was kind of surprised how early Tazz retired. He, of course, transitioned successfully into being a commentator. Yeah, I would go with RVD. I think too, and I'll mention this, that if you ask people, start naming ECW talent, start naming the top guys of ECW, I think Van Damme's name comes out before Tazz's name comes out.
I know. You know what? I would agree with you. I do think that this would be a really tremendous match, and Tazz had some great moments in ECW, certainly against Bam Bam Bigelow and others like that. I mean, he was kind of billed as the unstoppable monster, or not a monster maybe, but the unstoppable machine. And I think that's why he got the pop he did when he debuted in WWF against Kurt Angle. Mm-hmm. People were really psyched to see him. Unfortunately, injuries kind of prevented him from really getting a lengthy run in WWF. But Rob Van Dam had some of the greatest moments of his career in ECW, and being that he and Bill Alfonso are kind of already were a team, I do think that Rob Van Dam would get the slight edge here. It could, if we were not booking this match or debating it, I do think this could end up either way.
Yeah.
But since we are debating it, I would probably give Rob Van Dam the win here. Which means he is the ECW Originals heavyweight champion. And that also means we are tied.
We have tied. We are 3-3, which I'm not sure if that has happened before, but it's a wonderful thing. It means I think that we both drafted well and booked well. All right. So everyone listening, Chad and I have decided that we are going to do a dark main event, which was Chad's idea here. So Chad, explain to the people what we're going to do to break the 3-3 tie between us.
All right. So we are going to randomly generate two names from the ECW roster. And we'll just say, since I had the placement of names first for the main event, Leonard, whatever name I draw here, the first name will be Leonard's wrestler, and the second name will be my wrestler.
And I would say, if it's a name that we've already used, that's a repick.
Yes, absolutely.
It can't be someone we've already used on the night.
Yeah. And this is only male talent and not managers or valets.
I hope Mass Transit isn't on that list you have.
All right. So, Leonard, your pick is Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh, yeah, I'll take Abdullah the Butcher. It's ECW. It's hardcore. It's crazy. I'll take Abdullah.
All right. Let's see here.
And while you do that, I will say I've always wanted to go to Abdullah's restaurant, which was in Georgia. I believe it's closed now, but it was called, I think, Abdullah's House of Chinese and soul food, and it sold both Chinese food and soul food. And when you go in, there was a giant picture, a painting, an oil painting of Abdullah riding a white tiger above the cash register. But Dan Weber and I, good friend of the show, and Ronnie, good friend of the show, we've always talked about going down there. The restaurant is closed now, but I've heard stories of people who have ate there.
My pick is King Kong Bundy.
Oh, I didn't remember King Kong Bundy worked for ECW, but sure.
Neither do I. So I'm just going to call this, Leonard, I'm going to call this a draw because I do think that these guys cancel each other out to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Abdullah obviously is the more hardcore of the two.
True.
I don't see that bothering King Kong Bundy when, Abdullah, is like bleeding a gusher.
Yes, and brings out the fork.
So I think it's safe to say, as fun as this random pick was, and I actually picked somebody after King Kong Bundy just to see who it was.
Yeah,
Stone Cold Steve Austin. So let's be glad that I didn't cheat.
Yes, but that would be, well, no, he would have been superstar Steve Austin at that time.
He would have been injured Steve Austin.
Yes, injured Steve Austin versus Abdullah the Butcher. Now that's a dark main event anywhere in the world.
That's right.
But I could totally see like ECW doing a dark main of Abdullah and King Kong Bundy because they're both, these big, giant, immobile guys. They're not regular ECW wrestlers. Bring them in for a dark main. I could totally see that being a thing.
The weird rings that ECW had, I can't imagine the mass of humanity, what would happen inside an ECW ring with those two guys.
They'd break the ring. They would totally break the ring, I think.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think they do kind of cancel each other out. I would lean toward Abdullah because of the hardcore nature of it. Right. But yeah, I am totally cool with calling this a draw between the two of us. So to recap the main show, Balls Mahoney defeats Simon Diamond, which is a win for me. The Dudley Boyz, Bubba Ray and Devon, defeat Lil Guido and Tony Mama Luke, which is a win for Chad. Jerry Lynn wins the four-way dance and the ECW Originals television title, which is a win for me, over Brian Kendrick, Al Snow, and Stevie Richards. Sandman and Sabu defeat Raven and Rhino, which is a win for Chad, and claim the ECW Originals tag team titles. Mick Foley retains the FTW title on loan from Tazz against Tommy Dreamer. So I think there should be an angle where Foley doesn't want to give the title back, and then Foley and Tazz would have a match.
We should do
and then RVD with Bel Alfonso wins the ECW Originals title over Tazz and Tracy Smothers as his manager. That's a win for me. So 3-3. And in the dark main event, I think Abdullah the Butcher and King Kong Bundy fight outside the ring, brawl through the crowd, and leave the arena.
Yeah, they just leave the arena.
They just leave, and it's done. It's gone. I was at a show when I was a kid in Perry County, Ohio, in a barn at the fairgrounds. And the main event was Abdullah the Butcher versus Rugged Ronnie Garvin.
Wow.
And what happened was they fell out of the ring, they brawled into the parking lot, and it was over. Like they left the building, and it was go home.
That was it.
Yep.
That would have been an amazing match to watch in a barn, no less.
in a bar. And the sub-main was Junkyard Dog versus Prince Harris the Mummy, which was just a dude in a mummy costume.
Not unlike the Yeti from.
Not unlike the Yet. It looked very Yeti-ish. Yes, that's a true statement.
That's a word that we just created here. Yeti-ish.
Yes, Yeti-ish. Yes, and this was the company ran by Bobby Fulton, and okay. I think we referenced it a couple times here on the show. But Chad and I are going to go to a Bobby Fulton ran show on March 12th in Chillicothe, Ohio. It has a ton of old guys on there from several eras, several different companies. And if you look for them on Facebook, I think their company name is Big Time Classic Professional Wrestling. Sorry if I'm missaying that. But if you look for wrestling in Chillicothe, Ohio, and Bobby Fulton, you'll find it. They've got they've got their card more or less figured out, and the list of the guys who are going to be there for their fan fest. I only mention that because if you're out there in the big wild world and want to go to it, please do, because you'll be able to meet Chad and I and Dan and Ronnie, who I reference almost every episode. That's
right. And we might not have a stand that plays our show, but I'm sure the powers that be are thinking about it. So.
Yes, we might be able to talk to. That would be hilarious if like a bunch of people come and start like coming around us and be like, "Oh, you guys are awesome!" getting pictures with us and signing autographs for them, and everyone's like, "Who the hell are those two guys?"
Yeah, and my first question would be like, "How did you all find our show?"
Yes, why? Where have you been this entire time?
Past the Nitty Gritty dance videos on YouTube.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, this was fun, and I have no idea who our next stable will be or what our next stable will be. But
we haven't thought that far. I know this was the last one we talked about, so we'll have to dig deep. I think we've done most of the really big ones, so we're gonna have to dig deep.
Yeah, we might have to be creative.
Yes.
With our next stable, like maybe something that's not necessarily a stable.
Yes,
like,
maybe
WWF stars.
Right. Could be stars of a certain company or guys with a certain type of gimmick or maybe
AWA,
guys from,
WCCW.
sure, could be Canadian, could be Texas, could be, guys from England. A lot of different things we could do, so we'll figure that out. But I don't know if you don't mind. I'll spill the beans because next week, unless we get lazy, I think we are going to rank all the different gimmicks of Ed Leslie, or at least the top 11 that I managed to more or less identify from doing some online work. So we are going to kind of review those a little bit. Yep. And then rank them as from worst to best for Mr. Leslie.
I'm excited.
So we'll do that next week, unless, like I said, we get lazy, and then who knows what we'll do.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you think that Leonard or myself should have won by a landslide, let us know that. And by all means, check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you'd rather listen to us. And for Leonard, my name is Chad, and we might see her in the Elimination Chamber coming up a little bit.
You thought you were going to see her in the Rumble, and you were wrong.
Yep, and there's a mystery, or I guess an unnamed opponent in the Women's Chamber match, which one would assume would be either Alexa Bliss or Bayley. So I guess we'll see what happens there. But Alexa will see you out.